Hello and welcome to After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical, the weekly show where Tony Ortega and I get together and go over the week's events in the world of Scientology as reported on Tony's Substack. Hey, Tony, welcome back.
Well, and congratulations, Chris. I understand you reached a big milestone today.
I did 500 Q&A episodes in the can, so to speak. And wow, what a lot of answers to a lot of questions. So if you all like this show, I'll send you over there because every answer to every question you could ever ask about Scientology, I've probably answered it at this point. All right, let's get going. Now, on this week, we had some very exciting reporting. You were not kidding when you said last week that you had some exciting stories, starting with an answer to a question we have all had for quite some time. What happens to old Sea Org members?
Yeah.
Take it away.
We've heard terrible stories about old Sea Org workers getting worked to death, basically, and
I've seen it.
also just sort of disappearing. And we assumed that they were sending them to some care homes where they were, perishing with out of sight. But where? And there's a researcher. He goes by Cannonball. He's helped us out a number of different times. He's researched stuff like CST and the R1 religious visas. This time he cross-referenced some things, found some death records, and found that there are a couple of particular care homes in that area that the INT base Sea Org members get sent to for their final years. And he put together their names and we published them. Some of them were a surprise to our readers. They hadn't heard that those particular people had passed away. And that's the point. Scientology wants to control these people to their last breath. And we published those names and the names of two different care homes where these people have been sent. I also found out that Cannonball had shared that information with the Aftermath Foundation. So I contacted Claire Headley, and she said, yes, in fact, they have gone to law enforcement with this information. They want law because this is some of the issue that's going on is family members are still trying to make contact with their loved ones who are, put away in the Sea Org somewhere. And so Claire wanted the law enforcement to understand that this is how they're keeping people away from their families. So
Right.
hopefully that ends up in something. But you listen, there's other Sea Org people in places like Florida and California, but at least in this one facility, the base, which used to be the absolute most important location in all of Scientology, and it's lost a lot of that stature now because David Miscavige doesn't live there anymore. But there are still at least a few hundred Sea Org members, 200 or 300, and they're not getting any younger. So this is a piece of the puzzle about how Scientology basically works these indentured servants to the grave.
Absolutely. And let me just pipe in that from my experience on senior citizens in the Sea Org, just like children are adults in little bodies and therefore can be worked, senior citizens are, hey, it's your body. Get cause over it. Stop whining, stop complaining, stop bitching about your arthritis and your various conditions and get the job done, right? Sea Org members make it go
Wow.
right. You know, that whole
You
attitude,
and you saw that
absolutely.
yourself, right?
Many, many, many times in the 17 years I was in the Sea Org at Pac Base and Big Blue. And people died on the base because they were worked all the way to the literally bitter end. So yeah, that's what's happening there. And it was a thing where the senior citizens at Flag would be sent to LA when they got of a certain age because they couldn't have any dead bodies anywhere in Flag, but it was okay somehow in LA anyway. And so they set up this whole thing. But you got to know these people are not now retired in luxury. That I guarantee you that ain't the picture. So it's a harsh view the Sea Org has because it's right in their code that you are only as valuable as you can serve others. So the second you aren't serving others, you have no value. Get out of here. All right. Now, also, speaking of value, on the opposite side of the spectrum with Scientology, you had some reporting this week about the patron ball and the trophies given out, the bowling trophies, as we call them. What was this all about?
Well, you know that I love to keep track of the big whales and their donations and the trophies they get for them. And usually, the big the big event each year is they call it the Patrons Ball.
Yep.
It's the second night of the 3-day event at St. Hill Manor in East Grinstead, England, and it takes place usually early in October. That's when the biggest donors are recognized for their donations, and they get these big trophies recognizing different levels of donations, and it's cumulative. Like it's not that you donated $1 million this year, but that over time you've donated $1 million. Okay.
Right.
Well, it turns out that Dave loves giving out these trophies so much. They had another patrons ball at the New Year's event in Los Angeles. And according to Scientology's press release, it was the first one they've had in 5 years. And then they also had another one at that special Dianetics 75th anniversary event in Clearwater, Florida on May 10th. So Impact Magazine, a new Impact magazine came out and had results from both of those extra patrons balls besides the one we usually get in October. So I was beside myself. I'm so happy. I love seeing those pictures of these whales with their trophies. And we keep track of these things because it's very interesting to see how much people give over time. And there were so many. I put them together, both the New Year's in LA and Dynetics 75th in Clearwater, put them together, and it's just a massive list of people. Had to do it in two separate posts on 2 days, and saw some really interesting names I hadn't seen before. One of the people who had reached $250,000, which is patron meritorious, was Paige Dorian. She's a producer in LA, and she was part of Danny Masterson's entourage that went with him on his arraignment in 2020. She may have also gone to the trial. I don't specifically remember seeing her there. I heard that she may have been there, but the point is, she is in Danny's inner circle, and here she is being celebrated for donating $250,000. Personally, I don't believe the story that Danny was declared. I really don't. I think Danny Masterson and his family are still in good standing with David Miscavige and the Church of Scientology. And this is some indirect evidence of that, that one of Danny's inner circle is showing up in Impact Magazine for having given $250,000. Another interesting name was Melinda Brownstone, who was celebrated for donating $500,000. This was like Leah's best friend. When Leah Remini went to Tom and Katie's wedding in November 2006 in a castle in Italy, and Leah was shocked to see that Shelley was not there, and that David Miscavige was Tom Cruise's best man and was there without Shelley and was kind of playing grab ass with his personal communicator, a woman named Lou. Um, Leah was outraged, and when she asked, "Where is Shelley?" Tommy Davis told her, "You don't have the fucking rank to ask that question." This is all very well known. Everybody that's read Leah's book knows this scene very well. Well, what did she do at that point? She went back to her hotel room in Rome. And by this time, it's midnight or later in Rome. But she calls her friend in LA, Melinda Brownstone, because in LA it's still, the afternoon or something, and tells her about this terrible thing that happened. And the two of them, I think the way Leah described it was they put together the knowledge report where they turned in David Miscavige, they turned in the Pope to the church, right? Which got Leah in all kinds of trouble. But that's how close she was to this woman. Well, by the time that was 2006, by the time Leah publicly left Scientology in 2013, Melinda had, just chosen the church over her friend. I remember writing a story about that first week when the news about Leah broke, leaving the church, that Kirstie Alley had quickly called an emergency meeting of celebrities to talk about what to do about it, and they met at Melinda Brownstone's house. So that was just some little idea of what a betrayal it was to Leah to lose it. And now she's showing up all these years later as a silver meritorious $500,000 donor to the Church of Scientology, IAS. So those are a couple of interesting names. And then on the high end, um, Tom Cummins and his wife Victoria are now right behind Trish Duggan. My estimate for what his trophy was is about $60 million just in donations to the IAS. He was also just earlier in the last week we talked about how he got a certificate showing he'd done 700 humanitarians for the ideal orgs, which means 70 million. So that's 70 million for ideal orgs, 60 million to the IAS. That's 130 million from one dude. You can
Man,
see why David Miscavige doesn't worry about recruitment and people going up the bridge and paying $50 for an introductory course. Tom Cummins alone is bringing him in more money than 1,000 new people would who are joining Scientology.
absolutely. I think you're nailing it on all of those points. I want to underline and boldface what you said about Danny, because his inner circle, his connections, as we've discussed in the past, are legion. He's part of a huge family, huge group of people, all Scientologists, right? Through these professional connections. And that's that celebrity web that exists, right? And it's extensive and it's moneyed. There's so much money there. So if you're looking to, well, how could they possibly? Why? I mean, the guy's, in prison. If you remember that Scientology is all about the Benjamin, so to speak, right? It is the money, and that's what you follow. The other thing that's kind of really good about your reporting on this, and something John reminded me of today, earlier, John Atack, is these whales are probably the far better targets of protest and public exposure of their Scientology connections than going on Hollywood Boulevard or going down to your local church. These are the people who are actually keeping it going. And this is not, and Tony's absolutely right about that. This is not a small point. So just throwing it out there for the protesters, right? If you want to protest this thing or you want to expose, Tony literally has pictures and their names. I mean, because Scientology publishes it. This is public information. Out of all the things that that they're not transparent about, they love validating the people who give them money. And there's nobody who gives them more than these patrons. In fact, I have to wonder. I was going to ask you, have you ever seen before these multiple patron balls being held like back to back like this?
Yeah, they have, and
Okay.
there have been years when we've had a couple. Like for example, they've done them in L.A. before. I remember Nancy Cartwright when she got her big trophies. It was at a patrons ball in L.A. and not the big one in England.
Okay.
Um, but like I said, it was the first one in LA in 5 years, and the one in the Dianetics 75th, that's a one-time deal. So
Mm.
it was unusual to see, and then also what my experience is when there's a secondary or even a third patrons ball, and there has been in the past, um, they tend to be much smaller affairs, and you might have somebody giving $1 million maybe. But this was like two bonus full blown patrons balls. The one in Clearwater for Dynamics 75th had Trish Duggan, had Tom Cummins, had some of the other people giving 5 million or more. So this was not, sometimes they have a secondary one, but it's a lot smaller. This was like a full second patrons ball like at the IAS. And which makes me wonder, are they counting on Trish and Tom and Jim Bridgeforth to give another million or so between now and October so they can get another big trophy? They probably are. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it really does show where the concentration of Miscavige and Scientology's attention is at, right? The upper class of Scientology is what they're doing. Because contrast that with the fact that we have cut out so many public level events that used to be held every year on a schedule. They're gone with no free wins, Auditors Day, the celebrity Even the
Yeah, the celebrity gala
yeah,
hasn't been held since ooh, like 2013 or something,
yeah, like since I've
2014.
been out, they haven't
Yeah,
done one. Like
they
that's
haven't done one.
crazy.
I
It,
know.
it was every year like clockwork. Miscavige even spoke at one.
It
So
was August at the Celebrity Center, big outdoor
that's right.
thing.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So these public level for the regular level Scientologists, yeah, they don't really care too much about those. It's whatever the local org puts on, but it's not the international effort anymore. So I think that also contributes to our, sort of thesis that, yeah, they're really focusing on that top percent now. Um, and I think that's by design and necessity anyway, right? Because people can't afford Scientology. Um, okay, now this one actually got my eyes wide. Yeah, I thought when Pam Bondi left Florida, we were kind of done with some of those connections, but apparently not. The Florida Attorney General, the current one, you had a story. What happened?
Yeah, a website, Florida Politics, broke the news. Very good piece about how the current Florida Attorney General, James Uthmeyer, who's been Attorney General for like 5 minutes, sent a letter to the mayor of Clearwater, Mayor Rector, just sort of kind of warning him uh, that you can't if the Church of Science and he never names Scientology, never names it, but if an organization is asking for a street, you can't make it a condition of that sale that they have to develop some other parcels there they hold. That's against the law. And second of all, he warned the mayor specifically that some of the language the mayor had used suggested religious discrimination.
Right,
Well, I mean, first of all, it was as Mark Bunker pointed out to me, it was Scientology that proposed uh, developing these other properties as part of this deal. It wasn't the city requiring them to, but the city was asking why, why haven't you done what you said you were gonna do? You haven't done it. Um, and then as far as, this religious discrimination, it's like this is what happens when to me, I'll tell you what happened. So, um, this Brooks Gibbs and this group came out with this last minute alternate proposal, and the city council decided, hey, let's take a look at that. And then at the last second, David Albritton, one of the city council members, said, Scientology's still not giving us the plans. I'm not going to vote for this. And so they were facing a very embarrassing no vote. So David Miscavige pulled that proposal out that morning, Thursday morning, before they could have the vote that afternoon. And it looked like in the language that the letter the lawyer sent, that it looked like they're going to regroup and submit it later. But Miscavige had to be absolutely livid when that went down, right?
yep,
Just smoking hot,
yep,
screaming at people. So apparently, what happened was he then had one of their attorneys or somebody go to Tallahassee or send a letter to the attorney general saying, are you watching what's happening to this poor church? This
yep,
church is being discriminated against, right? And up in Tallahassee, that's all they need to hear. Oh, a church is being discriminated? Oh, we can't have that to a church, you know. And with no, I mean, like I said, the guy is he's been in the job for a couple of months. He probably has no idea of the backstory that Scientology sneaked into Clearwater in 1975, has been trying to take over that town and make it the first Scientology city of the United States, has kept the downtown completely dead. There's all this background to it, and when the city council tries to work out something with them, that's what they're dealing with is an organization, not a religion. They're not bringing up religious beliefs or religious practices. They just want downtown to have some life. So it just shows you how Scientology works very hard at the state and federal level to keep people basically mesmerized with their, we're a church nonsense. And so the Tampa Bay Times followed up and did a real good piece where they talked to Mayor Rector, and some other people. I got the feeling that the city council is just like, oh, whatever. This is a local issue. The AG is not really going to get involved. This was a knee-jerk thing where Miscavige tried to use pull their strings, use their leverage to get the AG to squawk, and he squawked. But I don't know. I don't know. Now Brooks, he put out a statement saying that this was great for them, that Miscavige made a big misstep, that now that the AG has said that, it will actually make it easier for the city council to say no to Scientology next time. He may be right. I don't know. But it just reminds you, Chris, of people always wonder, why doesn't something get done? And this is why, because Scientology makes sure that these state level and federal level people are just constantly safe pointed and never really look into things and don't understand the situation. And they just we're a church with IRS tax exempt status. That's all they need to hear. It's just amazing. And that's what Lawrence Wright said in the movie Going Clear.
Yep.
Yes, it's important that they have tax exempt status so they don't have to pay taxes. That's very important. But really, the value is they're protected. They walk into a courtroom, they walk into a state house, and it's the first thing they say is the Church of Scientology is a tax exempt, federally recognized 501(c)(3) organization. And then that's just like 90% of it. People have asked me, well, Tony, but why was Nexium prosecuted? Why was Nexium put out of business? And I always point out to them, Nexium didn't have church protection.
That's right.
Nexium wasn't a church.
You got it.
So,
That's
I mean,
right.
that's just it's 90% of the ball game, folks, is that Scientology has the state and federal level officials totally stymied. And this was one of the most sort of visible examples of that we've had in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't have to go, into deep conspiracy theory. You laid it out perfectly, right? All he has to do is get a letter and says religious discrimination, and suddenly that's the trigger word, so to speak. But I'll guarantee you that following that statement, Scientology is absolutely reaching out to his office and trying to establish what they call PR area control, because this is exactly why they do all the safe pointing and the fundraisers where Pam Bondi was at. They're going to invite this guy now, and he's going to VIP treatment. They'll fly him down. They'll do everything. They're going to wine and dine this guy. They're going to love him. This is exactly how they do what they do. It's not so different from what other corporations do, but this is Scientology. It's a nefarious organization, and we wish our government officials would be a little bit more astute about the context of these situations, but it's not the world we live in right now. So we're just going to have to deal with that. So we'll see what happens next. We will definitely. This is a little chess game now. We're going to see what's going to happen. Have you heard? You talked to Mark. Have you heard anything about how the other council members may have received this? Is there any? Oh my God, the AG's on us.
No, I should follow up with him on that because he does keep in touch with people. But like I said, the Tampa Bay Times did a real good piece where
Yeah,
they talked to some people. And like I said, the feeling I got was the
yeah,
city council's like, what do keep out. We don't care what the AG thinks. So,
yeah.
we'll see it. And that's why I think Brooks Gibbs is saying that there was a bad move by Miscavige. But I don't know. It's certainly, I think, something that the city council is going to have to keep in mind, and Mayor Rector is going to have to be careful about what he says because it's being
Yep.
watched.
Yep.
And I don't think it's that hard because again, they're not getting into religious matters. They're not getting into anything resembling religion. It's an organization that owns property that's preventing the city from becoming a place you want to visit.
There you go. There you go. And as factual a statement as you can make. Now, across the pond, we also have some more government play, whatever, happening with Alex Barnes Ross and the protest regulations regarding what's the latest on that?
Yeah, this was a great update from Alex. He's led a couple of protests outside the IAS, the big Patrons Ball we've been talking about, the big IAS event that happens in the fall in East Grinstead outside of St. Hill Manor. he's led protests there the last 2 years. Scientology has asked the regional council there to create a zone where protests would be illegal. They basically want to make protesting of Scientology illegal in that one spot. There's a particular law that you can do. It's called a PSPO, is what it stands for. And so for the last year, the city council, I mean, it's a regional council, has to take it seriously, kind of like county level. They have to take it seriously. They've been watching the protests, gathering information from both sides. And then the council reached out to Alex and said, hey, short of creating this law, could we just have some agreement from both sides about what's going to go on? Then we won't have to create a law. And asked if Alex would agree to certain things, and Scientology is going to agree to these things. Alex decided to give it to me to post at the bunker because he wanted to get some input from the community. And so we posted that a week or so ago and got great reaction from readers who had really smart things to say to Alex about be careful about agreeing to anything here because we know Scientology won't hold up their end. Why are they asking you not to be to film anybody when we know they have cameras everywhere? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So Alex put together a very careful response. He can't reveal that yet, and he sent it to the council. But the council did come back again, and clearly, whatever he said in that response has convinced them to okay, we're going to back down on some things. I mean, very clear in this new communication from the council that they are taking Alex's resistance very, very seriously, which I think is wonderful. I mean, I think it's obvious to me that this council does not want to create that law, but they have to go through this process because they know Scientology is probably going to sue them afterwards. Um, and
Right.
I just think it's great to see Alex is resisting in some ways, and they are reacting to it, and it seems to be really resulting in some good movement, so that the protesters will be able to protest the way that they have wanted to, do some filming of their own activities, and that kind of thing, and work with the police. So I just think Alex is doing a great job, and it was really wonderful to see this new result from this regional council.
Absolutely. I agree completely. And I hope he continues pushing because you don't give an inch when it comes to our rights. That is absolutely imperative. Because everyone you give up, right, you ain't getting it back. So, you got to, so a careful consideration is actually, really warranted. And it looks like that's exactly what's happening here. I'm glad to hear about the, your thoughts that they don't really want to do this either. It's just Scientology creating such a ruckus. And of course, what's Scientology going to do? Of course, they're going to push to take away every single right. That's all they kind of know how to do. It's not even that's just real. That's just kind of how they approach this stuff. If they could, they would shut down the entire thing and not let anybody anywhere near their properties,
Right.
unless they got a sec check first. Okay. Finally, we have Leah's
Oh,
case, her
right.
lawsuit.
Right. So Leah filed her lawsuit against Scientology in August 2023. She's suing over fair game. That ever since she went public with leaving Scientology in 2013, she's been subject to this ongoing, horrendous, just constant attack online, about her reputation, her family, and also not just online, but in real life, people coming to her places where she's trying to do business and with her family. And so she's sick of it, and so she's suing. This Scientology filed anti-slap motions, and what that means is before it really gets out of the gate, they're asking the judge to look at what she's charging and rule that it's just it just doesn't it shouldn't go any farther, that it doesn't matter what, that she's not going to be able to prove these things, end it, but get rid of it before it really gets going. It's a very powerful law. It's a very good law, the anti-slap law. It prevents people from filing frivolous lawsuits because the judge can end a suit before it gets, it becomes this expensive monster. So
Right.
this judge, he did remove some of the defamation claims that Leah was making. That, they called me this name online, they said this about me, and he ruled that yes, some of them are just opinion, and whether Leah likes it or not, the Church of Scientology can call her names, right? That's the
Yep.
Scientology's free speech rights, right?
Yep.
And so he removed a number of her defamation claims, but he kept in 8 of her 9 or 7 of her 8 causes of action, including the stuff that I think is the most important, the in real life harassment involving her family and the businesses she was working with.
Yep.
So both sides were very unhappy with the ruling. Scientology did not like that he didn't get rid of more causes of action. Leah felt that he had gotten rid of too many defamation claims. And so they both appealed. And that's what we've been waiting for the last year. We've got to read Scientology's initial appeal brief, it's called, in March. And it was really sneering and nasty and just the that these attorneys are writing for David Miscavige.
Big
They're
time.
That's who wants to see this. And I have an expert. He's an actual appellate attorney. He was telling me that that's just a very bad approach. These judges don't. Why are you writing all this awful, nasty language for these judges? They don't want to read that. So now we've been waiting. That was in March. Now this week, Leah's attorneys have put in their response to what Scientology's saying in their appeal and her cross appeal, the fact that she also disagrees with the judge's ruling. So I put the whole thing up, Chris. I think people want to read. They don't want to read my summary of it. They want to see it themselves. I try to format it so it's very readable on Substack, and it's long, but I think it was very well written. I think it's calm. It's factual. It goes into all of the horrific things they've been saying about her. So if you are unclear of just what she's had to put up with in these years, read through that document and you'll get a really good idea of the stuff they've been saying about her and her responses about how these things are untrue. And also that they're not just opinion, that they are saying factual things about her that either did or did not happen. And she wants the chance to prove that they didn't happen. And that's what's really going on is at this, I know it's been 2 years since she filed her lawsuit, but it's still in a very early part of the lawsuit where at this point, she just needs to allege things, right? Proving it to a jury will come much later, right? And
Yep.
she's
Yep.
got to have the evidence to show them and convince a jury. But right now, she's just got to allege her allegations and say that, this is untrue, that is untrue. Scientology wants the judges to throw this thing out before she even gets a chance to prove what she's saying. And that's the crux of the matter is, are these justices on the appellate level going to go along with Scientology and just throw this case out because they believe Leah just doesn't have a case? Or are they going to accept Leah's point of view that, yeah, these defamation claims are, statements of fact and not just opinion about her? Sure, call her a bigot. That's just an opinion. But they're saying things about why they think that she's that way and that they're, alleging that she's done certain. Of course, like one of them, of course, is this death of a Scientology security guard in Australia that Scientology likes to blame on her. And we now have the court records from that case. Leah never came up. It's got nothing to do with Leah. So that's an example where they say that Leah Remini has blood on her hands. And that's not just an opinion. They are claiming that this is factual, that Leah Remini was involved in the death of this guy in Australia. We have the court records. They show that she's not. So that's what Leah wants to do. She wants to go into court, show a jury, they're lying about me. They're trying to harm my reputation. And then that's how she can win that case. So now we wait to see what these justices at the appellate level decide about this preliminary ruling and whether or not these claims get to stay or not. I did ask our appellate lawyer expert. He said that it can go either way on some of the claims. He thinks overall she's in very good shape. One of the reasons why he thinks Leah's in very good shape is that there's just no question that there's malice here. That the way Scientology, because that's one of the key things in defamation with public figures. Leah's arguing she's not a public figure. The first judge ruled that she was a public figure. Even if you're a public figure, you can still get a defamation ruling if you can prove malice. And, my expert is saying there's just no, they've done such a good job. There's just no question. Scientology hates her guts, and they're going to do everything they can to try to destroy her. The malice is on its face, very obvious. So in that way, he says he thinks she's in very good shape, but he does say that on some of these particular claims, he could see the justice going either way on whether it's factual or opinion.
Got it. Wow. Thanks for that rundown. That's a lot. And that's the thing. These things take a while to play out. So every time we hear about it, we gotta, kind of remind everybody what's up because this is a process. And we said at the get-go, this is gonna take years. So here we are. The other thing I thought might worth comment here is how this is another arena where Miscavige thinks he knows best and he's the smartest guy in the room. And so he demands this kind of harsh language and this kind of thing. And yet factually his own appeal briefs kind of show malice. I mean, in a way, right? It's
Yeah,
not that the
that's a
judges
good
are,
point.
you know,
Well, and I remember at the time when we saw it in March and we saw all the angry rhetoric and everything, it was my feeling that that just shows they don't have that much and they're trying to make up with it with bluster.
right.
And I think I made the point to you that this really shows that what matters to Miscavige is, most people would probably not have appealed at that point. Like the judge had gotten rid of a bunch of defamation claims. She still had most of her causes of action. Let's move on to the next phase. But no, Scientology, nope, we're going to appeal it. You know why? Because that's a year and a half now. A year and a half when this is not doing anything. It's not in the headlines. The Underground Bunker is the only news organization that covers a document like this. Nobody else is talking about it.
Yeah.
That's what Dave wants is maybe it's not the smartest appeal in the world, and maybe it's very, very expensive. He spent a lot of money on those attorneys making this appeal, but it just freezes everything for a year, and you don't hear anything about Leah and her lawsuit in the news. That's
That's
what he
right.
really likes.
Exactly. Drag it out, drag it out, drag it out. Make it as painful as possible for the litigants. That is absolutely target one or two on Scientology's legal strategies, one for one for one. So in a way, no real surprises here, but really glad to hear that Texas lawyer had sort of a good, practical, solid take on it, right? Like, yeah, maybe this, then maybe this, but overall, we're looking pretty good here. I enjoyed reading that.
He thinks she's
Um,
in good shape overall. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so this thing is going to move forward, and they'll take it all the way, as we know before from Wallersheim, et cetera. They'll take it to the bitter, bitter, bitter end, right?
Well, but see, then it becomes interesting because, okay, take a look at Laura DiCrescenzo. She sued, had to go through all kinds of issues with her lawsuit. At one point, her lawsuit was dismissed, and then an appeals court brought it back, and then it survived two motions for summary judgment. I was at both of those hearings in Los Angeles, and after 9 years, they were finally within a few days of going to trial and Laura's attorney had done something very smart and had served Miscavige so he would have to appear during the trial. And then with I don't know like a week or two before the trial,
Yep,
Dave wrote a big check and made it go away.
yep,
Which who would fault Laura for taking it at that point after 9 years and depositions and her life displayed for everyone to see. I mean, she deserved every penny of that. So
yep,
but is Leah's a different situation. I don't know that Dave's going to be able to write a check so easily and make everything go away.
yeah,
I mean, I don't blame
exactly.
Leah if she's sick of the whole thing herself, but I don't know. That's why it's so interesting. That's why Texas lawyers said he does expect a trial, and that doesn't always happen with these kind of cases. So it
True.
might not be for a couple more years, but it could be quite a circus.
Man, tell me about it. Well, we'll see what happens. And folks out there, we are the ones keeping you informed on this every move. So stay tuned. On that note, you can see the address there for Tony's Substack. Go to it, subscribe to it, get your daily notifications, and check back in with us. Tony, anything on this next week? Any little sneak
Well,
peeks?
yeah, this next week we're supposed to get the response from the DA's office on Danny's appeal. So
Oh,
yeah, on his
okay.
criminal appeal. So,
All right.
he's serving 30 years to life in prison right now, and he's hired the best appellate attorneys in the business. And they turned in a lengthy appeal. And this week, the LA DA's office is due. They've already extended it once to turn in their response to that and answer the things that Danny raised in his appeal. They may extend it again, and we may wait another month. But at this point, it's supposed to come in this week, and I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right. Okay, good. Well, we will be tracking on that and the other stories this week. Folks out there, thank you very much for coming around and watching us. We will see you next week. Bye bye.